this is the last step, and this is kind of where all your work comes to fruition. So this is the learner step. Now, I've used the word learner, and that really is referring to two things. It could be the class, or it could be an individual student. Ideally, you would have a learner for each student, but administratively, that might be quite difficult. So let's create a new learner. I'm going to call this Year 9 Digital Technology. Okay. And I've created the learner. Now let's open it up. And here you can see, I believe this is called a Kanban board, and you have to learn, learning, and learned. And the first step is to add some chunks. Now there are two ways you can add chunks. By units. So remember we created the units up here. And so you can click individually, or you can just click add unit. There is also the option to search. So here we've got programming. We can also do, a filtered search, and you can see there are all these different chunks that we can add, and you can add them by priority. You can sort them by priority too. I might just add these two units. And then when we go back, you'll see that those chunks have been added to the to learn list, kind of like a backlog of chunks that you want the student or the class to learn. And you can see there is some filters. So currently we're filtering by the units, but you can filter by priority. You can also filter by schedule, and you can add a schedule. So you can add a date. Okay, I'm planning on teaching this, today, and then if you set that, it'll be there, and you can see the list there. You could also, like, if we did put it from yesterday, what it does is it'll say, okay, this one's actually overdue. So that can be a good way to make sure that you're ordering your chunks in a particular way. Now, when you're ready to teach a particular thing, so maybe we say, okay, this one's overdue, so let's teach it. You go click on learn, and it adds it to this column here. In this middle column, I think you'd have this list as being quite small. It's what you're currently learning. So this could be what you're putting up on the board as your learning intentions and whatnot. And then you can click learnt once you feel like the students have learnt it or whatnot. And then it sits here. And as you kind of work through multiple units and work through the year, this will become quite long. And the backlog here you can have as big or small as you want. But I think one or two items in this one. There's also this idea here where you revise. So if you click revise, maybe I'll just put another one across into learned. It'll put it into the revise section, and you can go revised, and it'll count how many times it's been revised. And this is, I suppose, acknowledging that once a student has learnt something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know it for the rest of their lives. Memories decay and things need to be revised. And this can also be included in the report. Now you have a generator test. So this can be all the assigned things, so including the two learnt, or it can be the learnt content only, or you can say a date for all chunks that have been added at a particular date. I think this one here, learnt content only, makes the most sense, because why would you assess students on stuff that they haven't yet learnt? And this would be looking at this right side, at all the chunks in this right side, and the assessments that are related to that, and it would generate a quiz. You also have this report here, and this is simply saying what has been added and what hasn't been added. I'm not sure. So here we are. So you can see here in digital technologies, 1 of 5 chunks has been learnt from the 5-6 curriculum, and here 1 of 59 chunks has been learnt. But then added, we've added a few more chunks. So that can kind of just give you a bit of a understanding about what your coverage is like for this class. And if you're super keen, you'll be like, all right, if we're doing year 9, 10 digital technology, we want to be able to cover all 66 of those. But I know that a lot of states and territories and schools say, well, the Australian curriculum is aspirational, so they won't be covering all of those. They might say, okay, well, let's cover the high priority ones first. But yeah, I suppose this is kind of all the work you've done in breakdown and chunks and units. That's sort of all this like organizing the curriculum. And then here, that's where you get to kind of benefit from all that sort of work and organization.